This video is made for Professor Ramos, and I'm going to be talking about the Medici family, the Pazzi family, the reign of Pope Leo X, as well as the Renaissance. Okay, so before I talk about all the families and all of this and all that, let's actually start with the Renaissance. So what exactly is the Renaissance? A lot of people probably heard the word Renaissance, but they don't really know what it means. The Renaissance was probably one of the most important chapters and one of the most important eras in human history. We went from Middle Ages to literally so much advancement, and we literally did such a 360 as a society and as a human civilization. We started. So basically, the Renaissance, by definition, was a cultural, artistic, and intellectual rebirth. That's when we started to create things, to spread knowledge through the printing press, to read more books, to be more individual, more individualistic. And it was a very pivotal time of utter transformation. And around the time, the main actual people that were behind it were Michelangelo, Raphael, and Leonardo da Vinci. Okay, so let's talk about the Medici family. So the Medici family was kind of like a dynasty of ambition, of excellence and excess, and their influence, without a doubt, it really shaped Florence and the Renaissance world around the 14th to 15th century. Okay, they were technically they had a problem with another family called the Pazzi family. So I'm going to tell you the four main key figures that I want you to know. There was Lorenzo de' Medici. He was the ruler unofficially, the ruler of Florence. He was actually the main character that that's gonna be mentioned throughout this whole video. There was also his younger brother called Giuliani de' Medici that actually got, unfortunately, murdered in the worst way possible. And that's something that I will get into later when I will talk about the Pazzi conspiracy. Also, we had Pope Sixtus IV, and he was backed by the Pazzi because of the financial and political reasons. As well as we have the main people that really just orchestrated this plot. We have Francesco and Jacopo de' Pazzi. And as I said, so the Pazzi, yes, they were the rivals. It was like a rival banking family that was kind of like in the second place, just behind the Medicis. And they were like the leaders of the conspiracy, and they were the ones that orchestrated it. Okay, so let's talk about the causes. So what really transpired around the time? So the main cause was Lorenzo. He actually refused the Pope's request for a small town in Italy called, I think it's called Imola. Imola? Yes, it was called Imola. And he wanted to weaken the Medici's dominance in Florence because of, as I said, because of political and financial reasons. So there was, in 1478, there was a assassination attempt. And the goal was to get rid of Lorenzo, as well as his younger brother, Giuliani. So it took place, 5%. It took place during the High Mass, the High Mass Cathedral. And Giuliani was stabbed very violently and very brutally 19 times. Kind of like that. Look, just in the most horrible way possible. And Lorenzo actually miraculously he escaped, and he had he had a cloak, he had a sword, and his reaction was very, very fast. So he managed to get very lucky and escape. That was probably one of the most important moments in Florence, in Florence history, because and let me tell you about the aftermath. So once he survived, there was so much public support. People were going out on the streets and saying, "Viva i Medici! Viva i Medici!" Meaning that may Medici live long. And Francesco Pazzi, as well as Salavati, I think, the others were basically executed. They were hanged from the windows. The bodies were absolutely humiliated. They were mutilated. Just people were, doing all sorts of horrible things. And thank God I'm not living in that time. I'm living in 21st century, so I'm very grateful for that. And the Pope Sixtus IV, he was excommunicated. No, he excommunicated Florence, but he failed to win militarily. And after that, without a doubt, so Lorenzo's support really strengthened, and people started to really just believe more and more in him. They viewed him as like a divine figure. Like, how can you survive something so? I don't know. Like, his chances were very, very slim, but he actually made it alive, and that's really, really fascinating. Okay. Now I'm going to be talking about Pope Leo X and his rise to power. So, the Pope Leo X was actually the son of Lorenzo de' Medici, and he became Pope in 1513. And after restoring the control in Florence, after restoring the Medici control in Florence, and he also had a very famous declaration called "God has given us papacy, let us all enjoy it," and that really defined his legacy. Okay, let's talk about the Florence and de' Medici restoration. So he then overthrew the Soderini's republican rule, and he installed his own government via Badia, so via the Medici supporters, and there was a massive celebration on the streets, and people were so happy because, as I said, the Medicis were very, very respected, and it was a phenomenal thing. The next point is the Renaissance patronage. The Renaissance patronage was so important because it provided the funds, the support, and everything for the people such as Leonardo da Vinci and Raphael. It really expanded the Vatican Library and supported the Latin scholars, so that made the transmission of information, more efficient. And and also as a side note, Pope actually hosted very extravagant parties, and he actually preferred more for comedies and farces than serious literature or art. Now let's talk about the politics and the warfare. So he aimed to build a central Medici-ruled state called Urbino and Ferrara, and he installed Lorenzo de' Medici, his nephew, as a Duke of Urbino. And last but not least, the excess and the legacy. And his lavish lifestyles really drained the Vatican treasury. And his dinners were so infamous and just so extravagant. He had jesters. He had so much entertainment, peacock tongues, and he also had so much debt to the Roman bankers, up to 40% interest. So, in conclusion, I want to talk about the themes. And in conclusion, the Pazzi conspiracy showed the Florence's utter loyalty to the Medici and also their resilience, as well as Pope Leo X's reign. It shows how patronage, decadence, and power politics, really shaped the Renaissance Italy. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and thank you so much.